What is up, Team ProGuides, and welcome back to another Valorant video. Today we've got a banger for you guys. We are still in closed beta. We expect to see drastic changes, and guess what? Here they are. But before we begin, our question of the day: what role do you think the next agent in Valorant will have? Personally, I think that the next one is going to be a healer type agent because Sage is the only healer right now, and she is just so broken. There's no other choice for this role, so people just default to Sage. And that's gonna make it a lot harder to also balance, because you wanna balance her from being OP or not, and Riot has even stated that she is OP right now. She's going to always be OP, because she's the only healer, and the only one with a pretty hard to destroy wall. But as always, please let me know what you guys think down below. We read all the comments. We really try and listen to you guys. And with all that out of the way, let's get into the video. So in today's video, we're going to be covering all the major changes in patch 0.5, as well as give you guys our agent tier list based on these massive changes. Starting off, Riot has decided that rifles should get a slight change, and all of the recovery times on all the rifles have been updated. Now, tap firing and bursting is more efficient, leading to less missed shots when you feel like your bullets should have connected. Apparently, Riot also did not like how accurate wall spraying was with rifles, so they decided to make rifles 33% less accurate while walking to try and curb this. Riot did say that they will continue to monitor and tweak this, so I would keep my eyes open for an interview with Dev Diary about it sometime soon. The Vandal has had its horizon recoil reduced by 15% while crouched and standing still. Okay, so what does this mean? Well, it has huge implications for the game and the way you play it. Because right now, as long as you have a good grasp for how far to pull down to compensate for that vertical recoil, you don't have to worry as much about your bullets wildly shooting off to the sides. The tap efficiency and gun recovery time were also improved as mentioned above, with the Vandal moving from 0.4 seconds to 0.375 seconds in recovery time, and moving from 4 to 6 shots of tap accuracy. The Phantom only received the gun recovery time and tap efficiency changes, like the Vandal, moving from 0.4 seconds to 0.375 seconds of recovery time. Unlike the Vandal, however, the tap efficiency was increased from 3 to 4, making it worse at tapping than the Vandal. The Bulldog and the Guardian also got their recovery time decreased from 0.55 seconds to 0.35 seconds and 0.4 seconds to 0.35 seconds respectively. These changes will make the skill ceiling rise, as you can reliably take multiple gunfights in a row without having to wait an eternity to switch targets. The last two guns to be touched are the Ares and the Omen. The Ares got quite a bit of a buff, as Riot wants this gun to be a viable alternative to something like the Spectre. The first change to the Ares is the price, moving from 1,700 to 1,600 credits, means that with the same cost as the Spectre, we might actually see this gun being used more for force buys or anti-eco rounds. The firing error has also been changed to have slightly less error. On top of that, the recoil after the first 8 bullets is easier to control. So expect to see this gun more in your pubs for sure. The final gun to get touched on the list is the Omen. This is a fan favorite. We all know you guys love buying the Omen. Well, the change that they made, reducing the recoil slightly after 8 bullets, is nice, but honestly, this gun will probably not be viable just yet. Although with Riot buffing the Ares by a significant amount, it is not out of the question that they may do the same for the Omen in the future. Next up, we have the map updates. If you guys have been playing ranked recently, you might know how frustrating it is to be the attackers on Split, and apparently, Riot does too. The spawn barriers for Split have been adjusted slightly, moving the defenders' barriers at mid from top of mid to the entrance of vent and to the top of the staircase in tower. A site is also no stranger to changes, as the defender barrier has been adjusted slightly, pulling it back more into A ramp, having the attacker barrier pushed a bit more into B main to allow the attacking team a bit more space, and this allows them to not worry about a defender pushing into B main before the attackers get there. Along from the spawn barrier changes, this good old box that everyone spams through once they hear plant is going down on B has been changed to metal to try to provide more cover for anyone planting the spike behind it. Hopefully this will prevent a lot of undeserved deaths just from trying to plant the bomb. I mean, they're just trying to do their job. Why make it harder for them? Lastly, for our changes to Split, we have an adjustment to tower. where the wall on the left side was angled to remove a 50-50 angle check, as Riot puts it. This change should help make tower easier for attackers to gain control of, as now you can effectively clear tower with only one person instead of needing two, just for the purpose of covering that angle. Moving on to Haven, not much was changed, but Riot did add a map exploit system that is supposed to punish anyone trying to get into weird places or access zones outside of the map. If you've ever had an Omen teleport into the metal container on Sea and Haven, I'm sure you guys know how frustrating map boundary exploits can be. Riot has also made some changes to some parts of the flooring in Haven to make sure they had the right material sound whenever someone stepped on it. Alright, now onto the changes for all the maps. Sweeping changes were made to remove some of those busted Cypher camera spots that I'm sure you guys have gotten tagged by before. No map was spared, as all of the previous cam spots we tested no longer work on all three maps. These spots include, but are not limited to, inside the container in B site on Bind, inside the wall in B main on Split, and on the tree at A long on Haven. SOVA was also not forgotten when it came to maps, as some spots were fixed across all three maps, where SOVA's recon dart was able to go through the map in ways it shouldn't have. Unfortunately, Riot did not provide a list of fixed spots, so we are not 100% sure which lineup still works and which ones don't, but we'll keep an eye out for you guys and keep you guys updated. Just keep an eye out for SOVAs in your game complaining about that one recon arrow lineup they actually know not working anymore, and them just becoming a glorified duelist. Not gonna be very excited about that. There were also some other less gameplay impactful changes, like changing the opacity of the spawn barriers and adding the ability for the spike to fall from elevated positions, so you no longer have to worry about your Sage accidentally boosting the bomb to an unreachable location. Map and agent changes aren't all that is featured in these patch notes, however, as we did get a lot of HUD and UI changes. Starting from the top, now teammate armor is shown on the scoreboard, which is a really nice quality of life change, especially for solo queue players like myself. Having more information about your team without them actually having to tell you is very useful. Pings have also been updated with new artwork, making them much easier to see against the environment in all maps. This is one of my biggest criticisms. I think that Riot actually just listened to me and made the changes. I want to take credit for that, but to be honest, it was pretty obvious everyone was saying it. Another nice change that will hopefully lead to the end of pings being lost behind map colors. Portraits in the minimap have had another update from the last patch. Riot has re-enabled the portraits for players on the minimap while reducing their overall size and adding color and a border to your icon to make it easier to find yourself on the minimap. Heading on over to Riot's dedicated quality of life improvements, we have some nice changes. First on the list, cheaters are no longer referred to as hackers. While this may seem like a pointless change, and it is to a degree, a hacker implies some sort of knowledge or smarts, while a cheater implies that the enemy Jett probably installed about 4 different viruses before getting to their cheats. And honestly, I think this is a good change because hacker just sounds cool. If you're a hacker, I mean, that doesn't sound like a bad thing. Everyone wants to be a hacker. But if you're a cheater, that's just lame. You're lame if you're a cheater. So, to be honest, I think this is a great change they made, because then it makes the community look at a cheater and just go, oh, you're cheating? You're so lame. But if you're a hacker, you invented the cheats, and although it's not good, it's I mean, you know, you have to be somewhat smart to invent something like that. But anyway. The next notable thing they added is a toggle between walking and running. For some, this change toggle won't be appealing, but for those who requested it, it's a nice addition. And for the last quality of life improvement, now Poison Cloud will no longer enter a cooldown when picked up during the buy phase. So feel free to toss it around as much as you like. That's about it for the notable quality of life changes, so let's finally get into our tier list. The only agent not to be touched at all is Breach. Before, Breach was a very strong unit, but now he is above the other competition. As Breach was the only agent not even to be mentioned in the patch notes, it seems that Riot thinks that he is in a good position right now. However, what is baffling is they decided to nerf most of the other top agents, allowing Breach to become even more powerful than he already was. Our experts think that the only reason Riot decided to leave Breach alone was because his pick rate was actually pretty low. Expect to see a lot more Breach players this patch, however, as we think people are going to very quickly catch on to how good he actually is, cementing his spot at the top of S tier. Coming in at second, you guys guessed it, we have Sage. In this patch, Riot decided that Sage was busted enough and changed her slow orb duration from 9 seconds to 7. They also changed the slow orb's percentage slow from 65% to 50%. The next of Sage's abilities to take a hit were her barrier orb. While nothing directly was changed from the actual orb, the cost is now increased from 300 to 400 credits. This change will affect both the items she buys on pistol rounds and subsequent force buy rounds the most. Sage is no longer able to purchase her wall and a slow orb, while still having enough left over for armor on pistol rounds. Sage players must choose between all utility or a lot less utility and protection. However, that being said, as the game progresses and more money is earned, these price changes start to become less and less important. While the 2 nerfs Sage received in this patch are a huge step in the right direction to balancing her, they really don't diminish her value whatsoever. As I said before, the only real way to do that is to introduce another healer or introduce another character that offers what she offers. Other than that, she is pretty much a necessity on all teams. So that being said, even with 2 Sage nerfs in back-to-back patches, we still have her in the S tier, and we expect her to remain there for a very long time. The last agent in our S tier is Brimstone. Brimstone did get touched on briefly in the patch notes, with his incendiary being increased from 200 to 300 credits. This change is not really a huge deal, and the indirect buffs to Brimstone make him even more viable as an agent right now. Highly recommend picking him up. His smokes are just game changers. Even though Omen's rise in the ranks means more competition for Brimstone, we still expect Brimstone to be pretty much in every high elo game. Thus, we placed him in our S tier from our A tier last patch. Okay, now let's go on to the A tier. Next up, we have Phoenix. Phoenix only got hit once this patch, but it's still noticeable. Phoenix's curveball now costs 200 credits per charge instead of 100 credits. That's pretty big. This means that Phoenix will now have to spend double to get both charges for his flashbangs, and that can seriously impact earlier rounds. For example, in a pistol round, Phoenix now has to choose between buying both curveballs and his blaze for 600 credits, and forgoing armor or an upgraded pistol, or only buying one flash and not buying blaze to afford armor or an upgraded pistol. Even though Phoenix got hit, some other agents got hit harder, so Phoenix will remain comfortably on the lower end of A tier for now. And in the right hands, Phoenix can be still extremely deadly, but doubling the cost of his curveball will have an impact for sure. The next agent Riot took a look at is Cypher. In the last tier list video, we had Cypher firmly in the S tier. But with the drastic changes to Cyber Cage no longer slowing enemies that move through it, and the fact that his spy cam cooldown when destroyed is now 45 seconds from the previous 30 seconds, drops him down significantly in our rankings. Before this patch, picking SOVA over Cypher in high elo was a big no-no, but now that Cypher's 2 most prominent abilities have been nerfed so heavily, our experts think that Cypher will become substitutable with SOVA, and thus he drops from the S tier to the A tier on our list. Moving on to the B tier, we have the Master of Deception, Omen. In our last video, we had Omen placed at C tier, but since then, Omen has gotten massive changes and huge buffs. His first big buff was his smoke duration being increased from 12 to 15 seconds. This 3-second increase may not seem like a huge buff to some, but it allows Omen to hold off choke points for 6 seconds more in total if both his smokes are placed in the same location. This lockdown is even more buffed with smoke projectile speed being increased. The only nerf Omen received in this patch was 5 seconds longer on his dark cover cooldown. These changes not only make Omen more viable, but with a lot of the other high-tier agents getting significant nerfs, this bumps Omen up to the top spot in our B tier. Sitting in the middle of B tier, we have SOVA. He only got one change this patch, but it was enough to patch out a few arrow spots you might have been using. As mentioned earlier, SOVA's Recon Bolt had a few weird interactions with map geometry that have patched out. Riot did not specify on which maps or where these patches were made, but it wasn't enough of a nerf for our experts to rank him significantly lower than last patch. SOVA is incredible for getting information, and that's very valuable for a team, so we're going to still keep him in the B tier. Moving on to Raze. Although the only change to Raze this patch was her blast pack being increased from 100 to 200 credits, her indirect buffs shine out. As a fragging agent, her role in the team is not to be the same type of agent as a Brimstone or a Breach. Her role is to get kills, and since her rocket launcher and grenades were left untouched, and with previously talking about Phoenix's nerfs, fortunately we have no choice but to keep her at the B tier. Personally, I think that Raze is actually pretty decent in low elo solo queue. I think that if you have good aim, you have a good sense where people are on the map, you can go pretty far in carrying your team with Raze. In high elo, I'm going to defer to our Immortal and Valorant coaches and say that she's probably not that good. There's just so much more that a Sage or a Brimstone offers a team, especially when in high elo you have a lot of communication, you have a lot of sophistication with the strategy, but Raze is a good choice in low elo. The Master of Poison, though, comes last in B tier with a slight but noticeable buff. Her snakebite radius was increased from 350 to 450. Before this buff, her snakebite was pretty underwhelming and was only used effectively in certain situations. But with this slight buff, we expect to see snakebite being used to greater effect now that it can actually cover a choke point. This is the whole point of that ability. This change does not, however, fix her overall issues in solo queue, and thus she remains at the bottom of the B tier. Last and probably least, you guys guessed it, we have Jett. Jett was given a small buff to her updraft, reducing the cost per charge down from 200 to 100 credits. However, this does not solve Jett's core issues, mainly being her lack of engagement potential, with really long end lag on her tailwind and updraft. While it is nice that Riot realizes that Jett is just awful right now, this change feels like trying to use a bandage to fix a missing limb. The core issues are still there, but you might be able to stop the bleeding soon. Riot, please do something about Jett. Jett looks so cool. Everyone wants to play her. Everyone wants her to be good. Do something to Jett. Change her kit up a little bit. I don't know. What Jett really needs, other than some sort of buff, is the actual stats and her abilities, not the cost. Hopefully Riot will be working on her personally, because I think she is one of the most interesting characters. I feel like in the hands of like a Faker or like a Simple from Counter-Strike or something, she could just be so cool. She's like a walking highlight reel. But honestly right now, so boring, so lame. Give her some power, Riot. So as a result, she's in the C tier. Alright guys, that is it for our video today. Thank you so much for watching. Please let us know how we can improve our content. We are always listening to you guys. We want to give you guys the best content, all the information that you need that you think will help you guys get better in the game. Very excited to continue doing Valorant content for you guys. If you guys want to get better at Valorant, you can go to ProGuides.com and find some Immortal and Valorant coaches right now. They will help you out. They are very good at the game. And if you guys like this type of content, just subscribe to the channel. We're going to be posting a ton of this for you guys soon. That's it for the video, guys. Thank you so much for watching. Good luck in your next few ranked games, and I'll see you in Valorant.